Good morning, Westeros!
Welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
I'm Kyle.
We are your Morning Throners. And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners with the Kraken's daughter, 1, a.k.a. Asha.
Asha, yeah.
Gentlemen, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
I always get mad when you get down on these chapters before we start, Jeff, but this is one where I was just
Maybe not spoiler anymore. I actually like this chapter. I think it's a pretty good.
Okay. Well, I didn't. I was like, I don't care about any of these people, any of this stuff. Like, tell me this stuff from whatever his name's point of view.
Dampere?
Yeah.
I like Nuncle Roderick. I think he's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, the Reader's the man, of course.
Reader, one of my top 5 all time, maybe.
Really?
Just from this chapter. I don't even know if he's ever mentioned again.
He's great.
I don't even remember if he does anything in the future. I just thought he was pretty cool in this one.
Okay.
I do like the Reader. I mean, he's a reader. As a guy who's doing a podcast on books, you gotta love a reader.
I don't know how long it's going to take us in these chapters. I feel bad that I'm always shitting on him because, like, nothing's really happening, right? Like, we're just kind of getting Asha's point of view of something that we know is going to happen. And, like, she doesn't really do anything to, like, further her quest to this thing, right? She's just kind of acknowledging that it's going to happen. And she runs into an ex-boyfriend. Like, that's the summary, right?
Yep, exactly. So she talks to Roderick and then talks to Triss. Those are the main two conversations.
And old Three Tooth or whatever.
Old One Tooth. Yeah. But, again, nothing really happened, but I didn't mind the banter in this.
I felt like this one, like I said, I would have rather heard about it from Dampere's point of view, and just this chapter didn't move much along. We got a little bit of kind of the insight into some of those questions I think that we were asked, or that you guys kind of were like, well, she's a woman, and kind of how does that kind of play into things and stuff. So, I mean, we'll get through it here, but like obviously she's not supposed to be part of this stuff.
Yeah,
so,
and I guess
so that kind of answers that question. Right?
A little bit more history of the Iron Islands,
a lot of history of the Iron Islands
and the Greyjoys.
Yeah, and I couldn't follow a lot of that and didn't care.
History doesn't matter. Timeline doesn't matter. All that matters is who's here right now playing the game, right?
Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is, like, to what Kyle's saying is, I would have rather heard this from Dampere's. I would say, like, we kind of did hear this. This is kind of like the reaction to the Dampere chapter. At the end of the Dampere chapter, he's like, King's Moot. That was like, literally like the end. He's like, he got all those people chanting. So it sounds like the word of that has spread, and this is kind of like how Asha is reacting to the news.
And he was pretty much already being like, fuck, it can't be Asha. She's a woman, right?
Yeah,
that was kind of his...
And even some of the other news we hear, like Euron's doing some stuff. Euron killed this one Botley guy, which is kind of how Triss is now in charge. Like, we heard that, at least, in the last Euron, that he had drowned at least one guy. I think the guy we heard he had drowned was Swain Botley, was Triss's father. So, like, some of this we have heard from Dampere. So, to Kyle's point, and I see what you're saying, like, do we really need to be expanding the Greyjoys this much? But I think that's kind of the point, is we're getting a reaction to his thing.
Well, I mean, I don't think I needed this. Like, they could have just, all the King's Moot people could have showed up to him or whatever. Could have been the next chapter.
Sure, you're just ready for the King's Moot?
But yeah, or the Queen's Moot or whatever,
Is it King Smoot or King's Moot?
It's a Game of Thrones word, so it's whatever you want it to be.
King's Moot.
Yeah, what are we gonna...
King's Moot. I would say King's Moot.
I like King Smoot a little bit more, but...
King Smoot?
I think I do say King's... Wait, what did you say?
King's Moot. Just say King's Moot.
Kings-Moot. Put the S with the Kings, not with Moot.
Are you saying Pan?
Pam. I think I can help with the whole Pam dilemma.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into it then. If it's, I think we covered our bases. It's not a groundbreaker. Again, like, I don't know. Has anything happened in this book yet?
I mean, this whole King's Moot thing is a kind of a big deal. It's just a big deal just for the Iron Islands, and we didn't really care about that until this book. So
yeah, but it's going to be different when we get to a chapter on the King's Moot rather than just talking. It's kind of like being in the war versus like, oh, we're about to go to war.
And to your point, we're like a quarter of the way through this book already, right? Like this only has like 40 some chapters. This is chapter 11. And I think you're kind of right. There has been a little bit of new stuff with what we saw, like with Dorne, a little bit of new stuff on the Iron Islands. But yeah, everything we've seen on the mainland is kind of just like Tywin's funeral, a little bit of new stuff, but we knew Tywin was dead in the last book. And then Brienne is on a quest that seems kind of pointless, at least from the parts that we've seen so far. She hasn't been headed down the right path. So yeah, nothing super plot heavy has been happening so far. But yeah, let's get into it.
All right, let's jump in. Asha is in Harlow Hall. All right, and she's kind of looking around at the bannermen that answered the call, right? Answered her call, and we read out their names. Now, who's there?
Yeah, so she's at a feast hall. I thought at the beginning, when I read this, I thought she was like at the feast with all her men. No, I think like she's literally just pulled into port. Her men are still tying the ship to the dock and unloading. She's just walking through the hall on her way to go see her uncle. And yeah, so she's like seeing all the banners of people that have come. She thinks that it's too empty. First off, it's too empty. 3/4 of the hall is empty. She's like, not enough have come. But yeah, the names that she does see, she sees the Silverfish of House Botley. So a lot of these are sigils, not nicknames of people. The Silverfish of House Botley, the Stone Trees of House Stone Tree, the Black Leviathan of House Volmark, the Nooses of House Myers. And then there's a bunch of versions of the Harlaw Scythe because there's a bunch of
all her family.
Yeah, direct cousins family. Of Roderick. Yeah, and they mention a lot of these guys later. Borman Harlaw. She might not mention all their full names here, but I have all their full names in the note. So Borman Harlaw had a scythe on a pale blue field. Hotho Harlaw had a scythe gilded with an embattled border. The knight Sir Harris Harlaw had quartered his scythe with the peacock of his mother, and the house with the peacock is House Serret. Siegfried Harlaw, Silver Siegfried, who she calls later Old Siegfried, has 2 scythes counterchanged on a field divided bendwise, and Lord Roderick Harlaw had the scythe playing on the black field. That's the Lord, the reader, who we see later.
Well, and like, so there's not everybody's here because other people are with Euron, right? Like, people answered his call, and like that's kind of the point.
Most
here, right?
of these who's, and that's the other thing, is it's all island based. So everybody who's here is from everybody who's from the island of Harlaw. So everybody basically, they went to their lord. It's kind of like in the Iron Islands, you kind of have the same thing you have in Westeros, where you have the north, the west, the Riverlands, and like each one has their lord. This guy is the main lord on Harlaw, so all the other lords go to him, just like the Karstarks and the Umbers would go to Winterfell. Like, he's just like the head of this island. So yeah, exactly. And that's what Asha's saying, is like, it would have been cool if there were some people from other islands. The only people from other islands we see was House Botley. So she said Silverfish of Botley, but Triss kind of explains this later. It's not really Botley's, it's just Triss.
It's just Triss.
We kind of, it makes sense by the end of the chapter.
Well, she leaves us hanging there, like, oh man, I haven't seen him since ... Kyle, early thoughts on Triss and her.
I mean, I don't know. I like, obviously they kind of had something going on, and he thought much more of it than she seems to at this point, right?
Yeah. I'm saying, like, when you first read, were you like pretty curious about what Triss was bringing to the table?
I was wondering, like, we kind of heard some of this from her with the Matheon chapter, right? When he was being weird to her
when they were riding on the horse.
Yeah, like something she was like, he was trying to get with her, right?
Yeah, she wasn't a shy maid.
I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah, is like, we kind of knew about her personality in that sense from those Theon chapters already. So
yeah,
I was gonna say maybe some of that is in response to Triss, right? Like, maybe she actually does love this guy that much, and so she's acting out,
deflecting.
Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah,
we'll see. We can talk about it more when we get to that conversation.
All right, so we meet this old lady called the Three-Toother.
Yeah, so she's talking with a lady called Three Tooth. She says that she's been serving here since she was called 10 Tooth. But then later she mentions, and you guys kind of alluded to it earlier, when this woman smiles, she only has 1 tooth.
Yeah.
And she asked Roderick, "Do you guys call her 1 Tooth now?" He's like, "I don't call her anything. I don't really talk to her."
I don't go by that old lady.
Yeah.
Weird old lady.
She's creepy.
She asks about, or I guess she just, I don't know if she asked or not, but her mother's here, which we haven't. First, we're hearing of Lady Greyjoy, who is a Harlaw, right?
Yep,
so
exactly.
She is in this family.
Roderick's
and
sister.
She is up in the Widow's Tower with her sister.
Yes, exactly. Roderick has 2 sisters, Gwyneth. Yeah, we'll say Gwyneth, and Elenice. Elenice is Asha's mom, and Roderick calls her Lanny. And then Gwyneth.
Good nickname.
So what's the deal with these 2 girls? So
they're both they're up there crying.
Is it Elenice or Alanis?
Alanis, whatever you want to call it.
I don't know. It's just a question.
George has said you can say whatever you want, so which makes sense because he says something weird. So
yeah, he's wrong. He doesn't know how to pronounce it. But they're all right. So old lady Genevieve, what's her name?
I was saying Gwyneth.
Gwyneth she's up there crying because
she's been crying for like 20 years.
Her husband died and her sons died too. Yeah.
I don't know if she ever had any sons.
Yep.
Okay, but husband's gone. That's why it's the widow's tower.
Yep.
And she's just never come down. She's like Rapunzel up there. She can't leave. And she should be, in her mind, the heir. She was stepped over to be Lord of Harlaw, 10 Tower.
Yeah, so I want to actually get some fans had actually mentioned this at one point. This kind of chapter in general. We got into a big argument in a recent Cersei chapter.
Oh yeah.
Probably when I was right.
And I hate to say it, but I was wrong again.
Of course you were.
But yeah, I was arguing that Cersei basically legally isn't next in line for Castle Rock. It should be Kevin anyway. And you guys, I think, both were arguing the other way. We had some fans basically confirming, yeah, legally, Jeff and I think Kyle was also on Jeff's side, and this one was like, they're right. It does legally go to a daughter before an uncle. But one of the fans, and I want to go and get some names because I did appreciate these guys chiming in. They did say that there are exceptions, and they said that the Iron Islands we don't have exact history for, but the Iron Islands seem to be an exception. Even though this example,
well, this is sister to brother.
Yeah, exactly. Even though this example is kind of you think this would happen the same way everywhere. Asha's example is exactly what we're talking about, right? Who would it be between daughter and uncle?
Sure.
And Roderick is saying, hey, a woman has never ruled the Ironborn. Again, that statement in itself is confusing. Does he mean we've never had like a leader that's a woman in charge of everybody? Or does he mean like never a lord of a castle anywhere in all of the Iron Islands has ever been a woman? It seems like almost that's what he's saying.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
It seems like the second one. I don't know.
And I think what one of the comments, and I'm just trying to find that really quick. That was Cersei?
Yeah, it was Cersei.
Yep. So people who are chiming in, correcting us, were Developmentalist, Joey Ken, M8K, and Lyra Corva. But yeah, they were basically saying, Nelson, you're wrong. Jeff's right. But there are some examples of when Nelson might have been right. I think, who was that was telling me Developmentalist was giving me some, and he even calls out the reader. He basically says no woman has ever ruled the Ironborn. So that was just the one that I thought was good. I wanted to come back and correct myself. I like to correct when I'm preaching something wrong in the podcast, and also I'm kind of right. So thanks for the
you're not right.
Throwing me a bone on that one, Developmentalist, and thanks to everybody who commented.
You're not even right.
I was kind of right. He said there's situations. It's situational.
Nah.
He gave a few other examples, but they're spoilery, so I'm not mentioning them.
Moving on. All right.
Moving on.
So mother is alive, but the last time she saw her wasn't doing too hot, and she's surprised she outlived her dad. And mom's super suspicious about the way that Balon died. Or is she? Yeah, I think they both were, right?
Well, I think just the main thing about her mom is her mom seems to have kind of gone kind of crazy ever since the first rebellion when her first two sons died.
Yeah,
and Theon was taken on.
Yeah, and then now Theon's dead. Well, supposedly he's going to be dead. Balon died. Yeah, like she's not in a good spot either, right? Like, so.
And she's like, all right, old lady Three Tooth, when my crew gets done parking the ship, get them some food and a place to stay. We got some captives too, but don't throw them in the jail. Put them in a tower. And this is like the first time she had to draw her dirk, I should say.
She does it a few times.
She does it a few times. It's the first time. People were stepping to her, and she's standing on business, right? Yeah. So old Three Tooth, listened up and got some food ready to roll.
Yeah, and kind of on the whole woman aspect of it, I feel like to your point, Jeff, is like she doesn't let anybody take an inch on her. Like you start messing around, she's like real quick to draw the line. And from the Duncan egg, right? That's what the Red Widow said is like, hey, like you can't take any shit. You got to be very strict to make sure, like, especially when you're a small woman, which Asha is, like, and you're commanding respect.
She always got something to prove, kind of thing. Yeah.
So she's like, all right, I'm going up to see my uncle. And as she's walking through, she feels at home at 10 Towers.
Well, so the reason she pulls the dirk on Three Tooth, she's like, okay, yeah, I want my men fed and I want the captives taken care of.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the reason. The reason she's like, all right, I'll ask Sir Roderick.
Well, she says, right. I want the captives taken care of, and she's like, and I want them to have hot food because the babe is sick. And Three Tooth is like, there's ham and mustard, and she's like, pulls a dirk. No,
ham and mustard's a pretty good snack. I would chew on. So.
She's like, I want good food, hot meals in their belly. It's been a tough voyage. And Three Tooth's like, the babe, because Asha says the babe, one of the captives is a babe. She's like, she's sick, and Three Tooth says, babes are off sick. Most of them die, and people are sorry. And Asha's like, well, if this one dies, you're going to be the most sorry. Like, we better keep this baby alive.
She fucking just grips her nose up too.
Yeah, I think it's more so disrespect. Like, all right, Asha, like, calm down. Like, I'm not taking orders from you. I'll go run it by Sir Roderick. I'll see what he says.
Sure, I'm pointing that out here because she does bring up later who these captives are when she's talking with Roderick. They're Glover captives, which is a noble house in the north, right? So we know she was at Deepwood Motte. That's their house. So she's got some Glover captives from when she's at Deepwood Motte that she doesn't want dying because they're valuable. So, yep. But then she goes on meeting with the reader, Roderick.
Yep. Walking through the 10 Tower, she thinks about how she always felt more at home here than Pike. And yeah, Uncle Reader is well known for reading. Nuncle. What is Nuncle? Game of Thrones word?
Not a Game of Thrones word.
I thought the first time I read it, I thought it was a typo. I was like, George, how do they miss an N in front of Uncle? Like, what are you guys doing?
I looked it up. It's just another word for uncle that used to be used a lot more frequently. Like when you know how sometimes you look up a word and it tells you like how commonly it was used in like dates on Google. It was just like 90% in like the 1800s or whatever.
That's stupid. I'm gonna have JJ call you two Uncle Kyle and Uncle Nels.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, we say it's stupid, but we're the ones that took the N off, right? Like, why did we take the N off the word? We changed it. What was wrong with it?
I didn't change it.
Somebody changed.
Let me ask my great grandfather when I see him.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Just means uncle. But
yeah. So she's walking through. He read everywhere. He reads on the shitter. He reads while he's seeing his small people. He's just reading. Big reader guy.
Always got a book. Yep.
And we learn a little bit about this tower. The reason it was built is because Roderick's grandfather's grandfather, so not too far distant, he had 3 sons who died in the cradle, and he blamed it on the dampness of Harlaw Hall, which another one of the cousins now has. I think we hear about that later. But basically, so he's like, this castle sucks. It's too damp. And he built a better castle. And yeah, so he was a changeable man. He had 6 different wives, and he thinks that each of his wives were as dissimilar as his 10 towers. So each of these 10 towers is different. I think she says the book tower, which is the one that Roderick likes to read in most, even though, like Jeff said, he reads everywhere.
It sounds like it's the library too, no?
Yeah, and it's called the Book Tower. We know the other one's the Widow Tower. So yeah, it seems like a pretty cool place. I did send you guys the map. I'll put it. I don't know. We haven't really talked about the look. The locations don't super matter, but I'll put it somewhere. Maybe I'll put it right now in the YouTube video. Just get a map. Just kind of shows where Harlaw is. It is one of I think it's the closest to the mainland, and 10 Towers is on the west coast, so it's like would be the most open to the mainland, I guess, if that really matters. But
okay, seems like a cool place. Interesting looking.
Well, and they don't say it here, but the other thing that we hear about Harlaw, the island in this chapter, is it's the richest and most populous, even though it's not the most powerful. So
they're not all fighters. We got some civilians on this spot.
Yeah, without going too far into history, Harlaw themselves have some ties to mainland. Like they've married into mainland houses more than other Ironborn houses.
Okay.
Which I guess kind of makes sense. Roderick seems a little more civilized, I feel like.
Yeah, he seems like a normal dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Compared to the other ones, especially.
Yep. So we get into him. We meet him. She finds him in the book tower. He's at a table, old parchment all around him. She's like, damn, this shit looks like it could be from before the Doom of Valyria.
Lord Roderick Harlaw was neither fat nor slim, neither tall nor short, neither ugly nor handsome. His hair was brown, as were his eyes, though the short, neat beard he favored had gone gray. All in all, he was an ordinary man, distinguished only by his love of written words, which so many Ironborn found unmanly and perverse.
Just a normal cat, Roderick Harlaw.
Just plain dude.
Probably walked right by him, didn't even know it was him. Probably had his head in the book.
But very powerful. Like I just said, like he's the Lord. He's just basically got everybody on this island to come to him. And like we said, it's the most populous island. So yeah, normal looking dude, but very powerful. So
yeah, he's probably got some money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Richest of the island. So we don't know him specifically, but you would seem so. So he's reading currently Archmaester Marwyn's Book of Lost Books. Have we heard of any Archmaester Marwyns?
Kyle?
Kind of. Was he the one in Old Town?
He was on an Old Town. So we actually haven't heard that he is
hasn't he been mentioned again?
He's been mentioned a bunch, even before Old Town, but we didn't know he was an Archmaester. But this seems like something he'd be doing. It's kind of like, well, we've heard, originally we hear that Mir Mazdor studied with a maester named Marwyn in Ashai.
Oh, yeah.
Then when Jamie's talking to Qyburn basically is talking about weird ghosts, right? He's saying, like, I think you leave something behind when you die. He's like, no one really thought the same way I did except for Marwyn. And then, at the Citadel in Old Town, Marwyn believes in the dragon rumors that have been going around, and he has a glass candle that is now burning in his chambers.
Okay. He's the glass candle guy. Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely been prevalent in this book.
I don't understand what this book is. Is this book just listing the books that are lost, or is this content of lost books?
It seems like it, and it seems like it gives a little bit about them, right? Like it probably describes what they think was in these books.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's some slight narration too on how Marwyn found the books, because like when Asha's leaving at the end, he's like, basically Roger's like, get out of here and leave me to Harwin's search or something like that. And Asha's like, let me know if he finds any more pages, because what he says right here about this book,
he says he found a couple pages of a book, right?
Yeah. So in the Book of Lost Books, he's found 3 pages of the book Signs and Portents, which I don't know if this is a subtitle or if this is Roderick's description, but he says, visions written down by the maiden daughter of Aenar Targaryen before the doom came to Valyria. So I don't know if that's a subtitle of Signs and Portents or his description. Either way, it gives us a pretty good description. I don't know if we know who Aenar Targaryen is, but so cool. It's like visions from a Targaryen from way long ago, which she kind of said, like, damn, it looks like he's looking at shit from before the doom of Valyria. What he's looking at right now, the book in his hand isn't before the Doom of Valyria, but it seems like he's researching maybe stuff about before the Doom of Valyria. So maybe he does have stuff out before the Doom of Valyria. So I think that's why Roderick's cool. So it's like, this guy probably knows stuff that nobody else knows. You know what I mean? Like Tyrion's also a big reader. Sam's a big reader.
If he's reading all the time, he just has like useless knowledge too, right? Like he read a book that probably has no relevance to anything in this time period.
For sure.
But, he knows about it type of thing.
Like this book.
Like this book, Lost Books. Like nobody can know about these lost books because they're gone.
Exactly. Well, this is, I think, 100% a for the reader moment, right? Because Asha doesn't give a fuck about Marwyn or the Targaryens from 400 years ago. She cares about later. He does mention some stuff he read about Kingsmoots that she finds a little more interesting. But I think it's just cool that we have like some characters like Sam, Tyrion, and now this guy, I think, are some very well-read characters that you never know when they're just going to drop some knowledge that we don't know.
Yeah. So she explains how, she kind of took her trip here from Deepwood Mont.
Yep.
Yeah. And the wind was against her. They had to make some stops because the mom ran out of milk.
Lady Glover.
Yep.
And they needed to find a wet nurse. Couldn't. Luckily, they found a goat.
Yep, they got a goat instead. And she's hoping to find a wet nurse now. She asked, like, is there
anybody available?
Yep. A prenatal? That's after birth?
Postnatal.
Postnatal? I said pre, yeah.
Postnatal.
Nelson.
Yep. And he's like, he didn't even like hesitate. That's kind of why I like him. Like, I feel like he's talking without even picking up his eyes. Like, he reminds me of like, I don't know. He kind of reminds me of Professor Slughorn from. That's what I'm picturing is like an old professor, like maybe a younger Professor Slughorn.
Like, I'm thinking again. You're more of a book guy. I'm more of a movie guy. He's kind of like a doofus in the movies, isn't he?
He's kind of like a doofus in the, but I
don't think of him. I don't think of Roger.
That's just what I picture. It's kind of how I pictured him, just like just a guy, But he's too old in Harry Potter in the movies for sure. But and he's also in Game of Thrones. Nels, do you know that?
That actor, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yes, he's. Now that you say that, I'm guessing he's one of the Maesters.
He is.
Okay, I'm not gonna say any more than that, but
yeah, well, it doesn't matter. It's a show thing.
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you his name. And he's like, "Well, you're too late. Change your plans. It's too late." Which
he doesn't know her plans yet.
Yeah, right. Like
he does though. I think that's the point, right? Like he knows who she is. He doesn't pull any punches. Like he seems to be even more of a confidant than her dad, right? Like this guy seems pretty close with her, to me at least.
100%, and like probably because he's reasonable. He seems reasonable. Like think about like I don't know. I feel like Balon would probably be 100% on her side if she was having this conversation with Balon. Like, yeah, fuck it, go take it or take what's yours. You know what I mean? But like we saw Theon try and interact with Balon, and it wasn't very like conversational. There was no give and take. It was just like my way or the highway.
I mean, this guy is the new way, right? If Balon's the old way, which we'll get into, he gets kind of into it too. Like, that shit's dead. Like, this guy doesn't want to be on the Iron Islands. This guy wants to be a mainlander bad.
Yep.
He seems all right. I'll agree with that. He seems like he's kind of just down to earth.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to be a mainlander, but I think he definitely has more of that mindset.
He wants to be a mainlander.
I think he's proud of his Ironbornness.
He literally brings it up here. Is we need to get land on the mainland.
Well, okay.
Well, I think he's. Well, yeah, that and. I mean, they need to expand somewhere, right? And they don't have more islands, so they have to go to the mainland. Is kind of what he's saying. I think he's also like, look, we don't need to be overly ambitious, right? We're just these 5 little islands, like that. Why is our goal to rule the fucking kingdom? Like, we just need to like benefit here, right? Like,
like if you just like look at a map, like if you look at how small the Iron Islands actually are compared to Western Westeros,
exactly,
and then like the Greyjoys, who are the ones in charge,
like, who are we?
Their slogan is "We do not sow," which is basically saying like we don't do our own work. We take from other people because we can. And it's like, dude, look at you. It's like they're like the Chihuahua barking in the corner when there's like a bunch of like big dogs at the park. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you can sit over there and bark all you want, but like you're not actually doing anything. So, and he's basically saying like we need to go do our own thing now. Like we can say that all we want, but it's not getting us anywhere. It's kind of how I see his overall mindset.
Yeah. So he also catches her up on her aunt, right? Aunt G. She's been chilling, still crying up top. And she comes back, right? The theme of her kind of being a woman is kind of referenced throughout.
One thing
he's in charge.
One thing before that, just in passing, Asha notices a book that's open, and she says seems to be a Septon's discourse on Maegor Targaryen's war against the Poor Fellows. We don't really know much about this, but Poor Fellows is something we've heard of recently. Wanted to run it past Kyle, see if he remembers.
Is that what Jaime was dealing with?
Jaime. The only Jaime chapter we've seen recently is he's standing in a sept overnight.
I know, but I thought it was like in one of the books or something, maybe.
He was like the Brotherhood or something.
Yeah, okay. No, I don't remember it's the Poor Fellows. That's not the beggars. The
Briennes. They call themselves a few different things. They call themselves the begging. She calls them the begging brothers. They're mentioned as the begging brothers later. But the one person in their group does say we are the Poor Fellows, and then like the leader of their group says like we're the sparrows of the people. And then So, but they go by those 3 things. But yeah, it seems like Poor Fellows is one of the titles for a religious group, and she just snatches a book of Maegor's war against them. So just interesting. Just wanted to mention it. Also, she trolls him here. She's like, oh. It's late and I'm hungry. Can I get some like food and like a big horn of ale in here? And he's like, I'm not allowed no food or drink in the library. The book. She's like, might come to harm. And she's like, I knew you were gonna say that. Basically, she just trolled him. He's like, are you just trying to troll me? And she's like, yeah, I do that to everybody. Don't worry. But yeah, then they get into more of the sister. I think we kind of talked about this. That's what you were talking about, Jeff. Did you have anything else to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, she's still up there crying, right?
Yep.
And
they talk about
she kind of like jumps right into Balon, like nonchalantly, like, so did Euron kill my dad? And he's like,
yeah, they say fell off a bridge. Yeah, is that bullshit?
And again, the way he talks about it, it just like he doesn't give a fuck. It kind of rings off like, well, I don't know. This is what they told me, right? Like he's not pandering for answers or like trying to read between the lines. He's like, oh well, Balon died.
I think he just. I don't know. That's not how I take it. I think he's just making it very clear that everything he has is secondhand news. He's like giving her what he has, but he's basically. Like every time he says it, he's like, "That's what I've had."
Don't trust
like,
it.
Or the Raven or at least that's what the Raven said.
But why isn't he offering any opinion? He's literally just regurgitating what was read to him off a Raven or what he read from the Raven. Why isn't he like feeding into? Because he doesn't want Asha to go take this thing over?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Because I think his opinions he knows would feed into Asha wanting to go. He thinks he was probably pushed or whatever, so he doesn't want to tell Asha.
I don't know. I feel like it's just his personality too. He's like, yeah, well, that happened. I got to read this book anyway. But
I think there's some of that.
See the Asha point of it of like not trying to pump her up, but.
I get what you're saying too, where he's like, I can't be bothered. I don't care. Either way, I'll be able to read my books. But he does seem very invested in like not wanting her to go. So like if he doesn't,
I was gonna say, I think he cares. I think he cares about her.
I guess that's just a her safety thing, though. Not like he cares about the politics of the Iron Islands, which is it seems like that's what you're saying. I don't really care about that.
Yeah, if he cares about anything, it's about Asha not going to this thing and staying safe there.
Yeah,
but it was just before he kind of put it out on the table that was his real motive for her to stay there. I was like, oh, this dude just doesn't give a fuck. He's just
So the things he says
at this page when I'm reading it, he's like, oh, this dude just doesn't. He's just fucking get the fuck out of here. I'm reading my book.
Well, yeah, that was
Yeah, so she's like, "What do you think?" And he's like, "Well, we had a bird that said the bridge broke and he fell to his death." And she's like, "The crow's eye's been gone for 3 years and he comes back the day Balin dies." And Roger's like, "Well, it was the day after we heard." So it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like he doesn't know anything, and he's making it clear that he doesn't know anything, but he's telling her what the rumors are. And he even, I think to your point, he even does say at one point, he's like, "I kind of agree with what you're saying." He's like, even so, his return was timely, even if it was a day after, a day of. Yeah. And she's like, timely? That's not what I would call it. That's kind of how Asha responds to that. She's like, this is super suspicious.
Well, exactly, yeah. And I think like she knows that he can't say it out loud, right? Like,
I don't know, like why not? It's just those two. This isn't the Red Keep. I mean, yeah, there might be spies, but like, you don't think there's people in the walls?
I guess it's still.
I don't know. We don't know much about 10 Towers, but
it's one of those things. I think you kind of just don't.
Unspoken, you can get it across without saying it. Yeah. So she's like, where is everybody? She's like, I told you to basically rally the troops.
Where is everybody of the Iron Island? Why are they not here?
There's only a third of them here.
Ready to roll with me.
Yeah. She's like, I only have 40 ships. That won't be enough to take the crows off the Iron Throne. And up to this point, the other thing is he thinks that she knows about the Kingsmoot, but she doesn't. So every time he's saying your plans have to change and stuff, I think he's probably thinking. Do
you really think he? I didn't read into it that he thought that she knew.
I might be wrong, but let me see. He's about to bring it up, right?
He's about to bring it up. Yeah, he's like.
Yeah, I thought he. Yeah, it seemed like she knew, or he thought she knew, rather.
I thought he said something that she didn't, but he might have just been like trolling. I think some of the stuff we talked. I just want to make sure what we missed before we get there. Basically says people came, but just people from the island. Only one Botley ship.
I thought you would have heard, is what he says.
Yeah.
So I thought you would have heard Aaron Dampere.
Like I thought you knew, yeah.
Exactly, but so realizing she didn't.
So it is new. It's news to him that she didn't know.
So he's been speaking. So like that's what I'm saying. Like when he said your plan have to change,
for sure
he thought she was talking about going to the Kingsmoot, but she's talking about literally, I'm gonna go fight for this thing on this chair right now. Yeah, like Euron's there. We're about to go fight. 40 ships isn't enough for that, is what she's saying right here. He's like, that's when they get into the Kingsmoot talk.
Doesn't even matter. But I guess does ownership, him being present on the Seastone chair, that's got to matter a little bit, right? Like if that's the symbol, it's kind of like having Aegon's crown. Now it's like,
it's kind of like, it's exactly what's going on in like House of the Dragon. Kyle's not watching that, but just broad strokes, you have two people saying I'm king,
and one's actually on the throne.
Exactly. Even if it's 50-50 who the people are siding with, one of them's going to have the throne. That does seem to give a little bit of a legitimacy, right? And like the other one, that's kind of their goal until, you know what I mean?
Just one has the symbol and the other one doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So
the Targaryens, it's interesting because like you said, there's more symbols like the crown. We've got into with the Dunk and Egg books. There's the sword, black fire, right? So there's symbols of being king, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Dampere called the Kingsmoot. What's that mean? She doesn't know. I guess they kind of know. It's kind of an old history. Last one was 4,000 years ago, maybe 2,000 years ago, depending on who you talk to.
It's probably, all we know about it is like the last one that happened, the one dude sent like a murderer down and just like fucked up all the opponents essentially.
He basically just sent everybody in to kill him. So, but real so quick before we get into the Kingsmoot, because I want to get Kyle's thoughts on it, because we don't really know, we didn't know what it was at all at the end of the last time. We knew Aaron Dampere was basically like, Kingsmoot, and I think Kyle even said like, I forget what your prediction was, because I think we had asked you like, what do you think this Kingsmoot thing is? Because it was very unclear of what it actually was. I think it's still slightly unclear what it is.
I mean, my guess would have been like just like a challenge or course of challenges to determine the next king, like who's worthy to be the next king is what I would have assumed, or who was like, like drown everybody and who comes back to life the last or something like that, or something crazy.
So one thing I want to say before we get into Kingsmoot is Baelor Blacktide. This guy's been mentioned a few times. Lord of Blacktide. Roderick says he did come here when Asha's like, why didn't anybody from off island besides Botley, who we find out is Christopher, who just has a crush on her? She's like, why didn't anybody else from off island come? He's like, Baelor Blacktide came, but he sailed off again after we talked. Now he's at Old Wyke, and that's kind of what gets into the Kingsmoot. I was like, why would he be at Old Wyke? There's nothing at Old Wyke. He's like, well, there's a Kingsmoot going on at Old Wyke. So Old Wyke, whatever. So, Kyle, what do you think? Because I think it's still not super clear what a Kingsmoot is. After this chapter, what do you think a Kingsmoot is? I feel like what
I just said, I still feel is what that was what I thought it was always, was kind of like some decision making kind of tool.
So like a bunch of trials, like 5 trials that if you
something like that, or the seaweed even, puzzle the fastest.
Yeah, or like I said, it could just be as simple as like drowning everybody and the one to come back the most or something
Whoever
crazy.
Whoever coughs it up first wins.
Yeah, who knows, man? Yeah, these people are nuts.
So I think that's the other kind of interesting thing that I never realized really on prior read-throughs about this was like what, because again, even up to this point, I feel like I've seen the book first, and this in the book kind of happened. It's very, very different, but like
the show,
the main threads are kind of there. So still like some of the main things, like what the King's Moot is, like I kind of still like that. I knew what that was when I read the books for the first time, right? So, but I think it's really interesting that I think one of the things they're doing with some of these Iron Island chapters is I feel like they're really trying to have some mysteries. Like this King's Moot thing seems like something that's coming that we're like, oh, what is going to happen? What's going on with this King's Moot, especially after this chapter, and then also Euron, even more so. Like I feel like we've heard of Euron a lot, right? And he just seems like this larger than life, like mystic-y.
He's got some weird shit going on. He's got monsters and wizards with him.
Yeah, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like, and just like the stuff he's been doing, and the fact that he was banished, and so yeah.
And what's the line? He was. It goes back to when it was like, oh, was Balon murdered? He was like, well, he was 300 days away, but also here the next day as well. Right? Do you remember that line?
He was gone for 3 years, and he got back the day Balon died.
And he was back the day after. Yeah. Whatever. So I just thought that was funny too.
Kyle, thoughts on that? Sorry, you look like you were saying something. We kept cutting you up, jumping ahead. Right?
No, it's all right. That was pretty much what I was gonna say. You're
the first read through guy, so you got to say something.
Well, yeah, I don't know much about Euron at all. Like I was even trying to kind of remember what we knew of him, and like I know Aeron, I believe last chapter or last kind of chapter out here was talking about or thinking about what Euron was doing. I don't remember too much about him, to be honest with you, Nelson.
I mean, that's fair. Euron's thoughts of him are very vague, but not good. So I think it's fine. I don't think we really know specifics. We just know that it's like Aeron's basically like, that's my brother, but fuck, we need to stop this guy at all costs.
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that I knew. And that was why he was like, well, that's why we're going to do this King's Moot thing, right? Like he was like trying to come up with a different way that he didn't have to be the one to take the throne, Aeron, and didn't have to fight Euron.
Yep, exactly. So into the King's Moot, Aeron called it King's Moot.
I'm not fucking going there, is what the reader's saying.
Yeah, Roderick was,
and your ass shouldn't go either.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like, nothing good's gonna happen there. Like that was when he kind of talks about the last time, right? Like the last time this happened, everybody got cut down. Like don't go, you can't go, you can't go.
You just got to get the name drops in. There are mentions of 3 new drowned priests who are also preaching this all over: Blind Baron Blacktide, Tarl the Thrice Drowned, and Old Grey Gull. Those are also 3 priests that have started preaching.
If the Iron Island does anything right with they got some good nicknames. I mean, even just Damp Hair, like that's a good nickname.
Yeah, I mean, this guy drowned himself 3 times. It's a well-earned nickname.
Thrice drowned.
Yeah.
Hence thrice drowned.
Yeah. So the other thing is, Asha's like, what does Euron think of this? What does Victarion think of this? He's like, how the fuck do I know? Like, they probably know about it, just like you do. They
didn't send me a raven. I didn't read it. I didn't read about it in today's paper.
Yeah, they're not coming to me like you are. Yeah, I don't know what they think. Yeah, but they know about it like you do.
So that other people came to him, right, for like counsel, and he seemingly gave them counsel, right? And
he just says the one guy, Balon Blacktide, came to him.
One guy came through and then bailed right away. But yeah, he's like, look, you go, you're gonna fucking die. Or most likely die, right? That's
nothing good's gonna happen.
The thing is, this history that he gives her. So this history is from Herrick's History of the Ironborn. You guys kind of alluded to it already. This doesn't seem like you need to be a historian to know this. Triss mentions this later. He basically says, so the last King's Moot, Euron Greyiron of Orkmont sent his axemen loose on the rest and turned Naga's ribs red with gore. After that, House Greyiron ruled unchosen for 1,000 years until the Andals came. So again, this is long history, but basically the last time this thing happened, one person just sent all his men in and it turned into a fight and he just took over.
It makes me curious if there was ever peaceful King's Moots.
You think so, or else you wouldn't keep going back.
Yeah, why'd you keep doing it?
Was this one the like, oh shit, let's not do that again. I ain't showing up because I ain't getting chopped down type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's hard to tell because like we don't know exactly what a Kingsmoot is, so maybe that's what it is. Is like you're all just supposed you are just supposed to send all your
show
people
up with
in
your axemen and see who lives.
Exactly, and he just won.
Well, they keep mentioning this Naga person a lot.
It's a rock. Too. I think it's a place.
Naga's ribs. It's like a holy site.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
gotcha.
Aaron mentioned it last time too.
Gotcha.
All right. And he's like, look, this is what I think we should do. We should pick a side in the mainland war because we need some land. We need to spread. We need to spread our wings a little bit, right? And
dude, it's an opportunity.
She's like, fuck that. Like we can do that. It's actually like it's not a bad idea, but.
Yeah, it's like, why do we need to? This is what I was saying earlier. Why do we need conquest? Why do we need, like, to control everything? Let's just get a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like,
let's be realistic.
I'll be on the Seastone chair when I make that decision to do what you're saying.
Well, I mean, I think that's fair too. Like, even if they wanted to do what he's saying, you kind of need to be in charge to get the whole Iron Islands to do that, to be on a side to do that.
Or can you break off from the island that you're a part of now, right? Because they're mentioning right now that there's salt and stone Iron Islanders, right? It was mentioned a little bit. There were some that are of salt, and there's some that are of stone.
Aaron basically thinks there are some that are more drown god religious. Like I don't know how he would think on the Harlaws. The Harlaws seem kind of like
they sound pretty stony, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't know. If, they might have used those terms. If so, I'm not sure. But
it
I
was
get what you're
mentioned
saying
in this chapter. Okay, I didn't pull that out from a Damp Hair chapter.
Okay. Well, I remember Damper was one that was kind of talking about that because the ones that he went to visit, he didn't like that they even had a maester. Right, he's like the maesters were the old ways.
When the last Salt Kings and the Rock Kings met in Kingsmoot, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Salt
something
Kings.
like that.
Oh, Salt and Rock Kings.
There's already kind of two sects of it. Like you could just be like, all right, I'll be the Rock. Yo, Rock people, huddle up. Let's go to work.
I just think like even if that worked in short term, being so close together. Like, and having like the Rock guys be like, oh, we have help on the Westeros. Like, Westeros isn't going to come help out. Like, when you need help, they're going to be like, fuck you. Like, whatever.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
So,
no, I'm just saying. And it's not how Asha's built anyway. It's for it to even matter.
I would just say it's a good point by Asha to be like, hey, it's a good point that you're saying. And maybe I consider that, but I can't consider that until I'm the one in charge. So that's step one.
It'll be a lot easier for me to do something about it if I'm.
It's a king's moot point right
the
now.
queen.
It's a king's moot point, exactly. Yes.
Right.
And he keeps harping on no woman has ever ruled us. You're a daughter, not a son, and you have 3 uncles. She's like, I have 4 uncles. Don't leave yourself out here.
He's pretty quick to not. He's like, look, I'm not even Maharlaw. We're chilling here. Well,
he's basically saying like you have 3 uncles in your way of why you can't be in charge, and he's not in that line.
Well, she's saying I have a 4th as an ally, which
exactly.
I guess to her point, she doesn't know where Victarion, who is commander of the fleet, right, the big fleet.
Well, yeah, but what he says here, he's like, hey, so I have you still, and that's the point. I have you, and as long as I have you, I have 10 towers, and I have Harlaw, so I have this island, and that's the biggest, most populous. And he says, although they would follow me in war, it's not the same at a Kingsmoot. There, each captain stands as equal.
Yeah, so it's probably a one-on-one or whatever, right? Like like you can't, like it doesn't matter how big your army is.
You can't make people follow you. Like if other captains want to do their own thing, they can do their own thing.
What? No, I'm just saying it's like one-on-one at the Kingsmoot.
Well, she's saying here, like, hey, as long as I have you, I have Harlaw. And he's like, that doesn't matter. Like, if we're not going into battle, we're just having me on your side helps. So that's what you're saying. It's you by yourself.
Well, yeah, that's what she's saying here. Yeah, I don't.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, he says some may even shout some may shout your name at the Kingsmoot, but more will shout for Victarion or Euron.
It's just not going to be enough. You're third fiddle at this party.
Yep.
And it's literally just because she's a woman, right? Because it seems like she's well respected as a captain. She's a pretty boss girl.
And that's just not what we do here in the Iron Islands.
It's not the way.
Yep. No one's gonna believe in you. Yep.
Yeah, long shot.
Yeah. So this is when they start talking about Balon. And they're like, hey, I liked your dad. He was brave, but like he was kind of like Aaron, but in like the war and everything else that's not religious. He was too stuck in the old ways.
You're saying Targaryen or Damphair?
Aaron, his brother Damphair. Yeah, Aaron Damphair.
He's all about
the old way.
The drown god way.
The god.
Not necessarily in a super religious way, but yeah, in like we do not sow, we only fight people. Exactly.
Which is a pretty stupid ass way to live. Like you're not going to plant a crop. Yeah, I understand. Like, dude, find a way.
Depend on somebody
Get out
else.
there and fish some more and then go trade. But
that's kind of what Roderick says. Roderick says the old way died with Harren the Black and his sons. This is history we know. Harren the Black and his sons. When did they die?
I don't know.
Jeff?
Come on, Harren the Black when he stood against Aegon the Conqueror.
Do we know any castles that Harren the Black might have built?
Yeah,
Harrenhal. Yeah, exactly.
And then they got their ass burnt down.
Well, to Roderick's point, hey, we want land on the mainland. At one point, the Lord of the Iron Islands wasn't the Lord of the Iron Islands. They were the Lord of the Islands in the rivers. They held all that shit. And then when Aegon took over, he's like, okay, you can keep your fucking islands.
Yeah, we don't want we don't want those rivers. Was it we don't want those islands or we don't want those rivers?
We don't want those. We don't need the islands. The island. It wasn't up to. Yeah, we don't care about the islands. You can be the Lord of them, but we're taking the riverlands.
We're taking the rivers back. That's what
exactly.
I was. Who was choosing to stay away? It wasn't Aegon the Conqueror. Like he was taking the rivers. It's more so than
to that point, like Roderick say, hey, we need land on the mainlands. At one point, we were the islands and the islands and the rivers, like not just the island. Like we can do both. So
interesting. Yeah. I didn't pick that one up.
It was like the old way died with him. Now we're too small to be able to just like do whatever we want. We're just like the little, like I said, we're the Chihuahua in the corner saying we can do whatever we want, but like. Exactly. Like, no, you can't.
Just a little
Back
peanut.
then, they were a big dog, so they could kind of just push other people around.
Yeah. All right. Keep on rolling. Old Way's dead, and she kind of brings up like, all right, well, you know, I'm navigating my boat. I got the wavy shores on my right, the rocks are on my left. I need a third path.
Rocks to starboard, storms to port.
All right, but she mentions this long way of getting to this third path, which she doesn't really talk about either. Leaves us on a cliffhanger.
It's like, I'll tell you once I'm queen. It's like, come to my queen's moot. So this is where she's called it queen's moot.
Yeah, she changed that syntax pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Very witty there.
And he's
Asha.
like, how could you not even consider attending? This is going to be history alive. And he says, I prefer my history dead. Dead history is written ink, the living sort in blood. He's like, do you want to die old and crave it in your bed? He's like, how else? Though, not till I'm done reading. So he's like, yes, of course I want to die old in my bed. Like, I don't want to die young on a battlefield.
It's a pretty craven answer. He's kind of like Sam, right? This is Sam in 30 years.
Well, with a little more self-confidence.
If Sam had a choice, right?
The thing is, like, the way he speaks, I feel you got to remember, he did have sons die in a war. Like, he mentioned that at some point in here, right?
Yeah, was he there? Was he out the war?
I don't know if he was at war, but, like, apparently he's definitely not super against it. Like, he's not, like, I'm sure he probably didn't have this conversation with his sons. He's probably like, all right, go out there and win our house. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong with that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, I think you're right, Nelson.
I think there's some of that Ironborn in him still, just like, in this one, he thinks this one is just crazy. So, and I think he's also a little sexist, even though he loves Asha. He's sexist against her.
Well, maybe he believed. Hold on. Maybe he believed in that war that they could win, where he doesn't believe anything in Asha.
Exactly. And I think part of that's because he's sexist against her.
Yeah, I would agree with all that.
I don't know if he is sexist against her.
He definitely loves her, but I think he
just realizes that the rest of the islands are going to be sexist against her.
He definitely is saying
he's going to name her heir in a second, right?
Well, so let's get into that, because he kind of does, kind of doesn't. It's like,
well, you're kind of the heir, but you're not really the heir.
Yeah, I'm going to give you my castle, but I'm actually going to give the lordship to the cousin. So, like, you don't get any power. You just get this castle.
I mean, I'll take a castle.
For sure, but it's not the same as what it originally sounds.
No, I know.
And it's sticking with the whole a woman will never rule the Ironwood. Like, you're not ruling anybody. You'll just have a castle.
He's not about to shake that up.
Yeah, the Harlaw. Well, the Harlaws aren't even going to listen to you ruling that. All right, so before she gets there, all right, the mother's doing a lot stronger. He kind of lies. He's like, oh, she might outlive all of us now. And then he's like, no, you should stay around. She's going to leave us soon. A little bit later.
Yeah, you're right.
He completely flipped his tune on her,
but
on
I think,
her health.
no, well, I think the whole point of that, though, is like, she even said that earlier, like it was a surprise that she outlived her dad. And like, so on, like, I think that's kind of the point, is like, just like they were being sarcastic about it. Like, oh, this old lady, she's too stubborn to die. She'll never die. She's going to outlive everybody.
But she might die soon. So hang on.
Yeah, but yeah.
And Uncle Roderick's like, you gotta tell your mom about Theon. She's gonna ask about him, and
she deserves to know too.
She deserves, yeah. Give her what you know. And Asha, what does she know, Kyle?
Nothing really. All they know is that, like, kind of what we know, he just disappeared at the. Well, she actually knows less than us, because she doesn't know about the Northmen coming and fighting, like the Roose Bolton stuff, or Not Roose. What was his name?
Ramsey.
Ramsey Bolton. Yeah. So she doesn't even know about like some of that. So
she does. So interesting. She's clearly been to Winterfell.
Well, she says it seems like it.
She's clearly been to Winterfell, which is interesting because she hadn't been to Winterfell, right? Like she wasn't there when all this happened. So she's been to Winterfell since this happened. And what were you going to say, Kyle?
What was it say? Yeah, she probably went to check to find him. Like, right?
Yeah, like what's going on? We have radio silence. And then what she finds, she says, it looks like.
Well, yeah, it looks like the Northmen fought themselves and it's just like chaos there, right? Like, and just like death.
Yeah, because there's like some Ironborn, but it's like there's everywhere. A lot of dead Northmen. Like too many. Yeah, and also the four-legged wolves had been there, gotten to the bodies.
Actual wolves. Just fucked everything up.
Had to eat, and some crows, maybe some crows fighting over each other.
Exactly, everything.
We had it's been a lot of crows talk in this book, right? Obviously,
Feast of Crows,
but it's been mentioned. He's laying it. He's laying it a little thick, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely mentioned it like heavy the past few. Like Jamie was thinking about it.
Wasn't Brienne thinking about it too? Or
a lot of people have been thinking about it.
Yeah,
everybody seems to be bringing it. Now I see her crows squabbling over the corpse of Westeros. That's an interesting take on it. Yep.
So, all right, please don't go. You can be my heir of 10 towers.
Yep. I'm not gonna wed again. Not gonna have any. My son's already dead. You can have 10 towers after me. So your cousins aren't gonna like that. And so here we're talking about Harris, the knights, or Siegfried, Hotho, the humpback, and Borman Harlaw. And he basically, they all have seats already. Siegfried has Harlaw Hall, which was the shitty one that was damp where the three sons died. Humpback, Hotho, has the Tower of Glimmering. Sounds kind of cool, especially from the Iron Islands, which is a crag on the west coast. The knights, or Harris Harlaw, has Grey Garden. Borman Harlaw, Borman the Blue, held Harridan Hill. So he's like, they all have castles. And she's like, yeah, but Borman has three sons and Sigurd has grandsons. So like, they're going to want their children to...
They're going to want spots. They're going to want...
Be elevated, yeah.
Beds to put their head down.
And Hotho has ambitions. And he's like, well, the knight's going to be the lord after me. But he can rule from where he is. He can protect you if you do him fealty. And she's like, I don't need protecting. I'm a Kraken.
I'm a boss.
It's my father's seat I want, not yours.
And I'm not my aunt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, thanks, but no thanks, dude.
Yep.
Plus those size, they look dangerous. I'm going.
She doesn't.
Yeah, I'm going to get my dad's seat.
She doesn't tell him, but your ass is coming to the Queen's Moot.
Yeah.
Get your ass there.
She's like, she knew her uncle, he would never change, but he would be there.
And she starts walking back to the hall, thinking of, all right, my men are cool. They're going to follow me wherever. They'll die for me. Some of them want to bang me, but a lot of them just like me. And
half of them love me like a daughter. Half of them want to spread my legs, but they'd all die for me. And I think the best part here, she says, and I die for all of them.
Yeah.
Right. So she's not just
a soldier.
Like, she's not using these guys. Right. She's just a true captain. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all right, how am I going to win these people over? And then boom, shadowy figure with a seal tunic, whatever they wear.
Yeah, they wear sealskin cloaks.
Yeah.
Christopher Botley. Yep.
The Tristfer.
Yep.
And I don't know. This is basically like, I love you so much.
Yeah.
Have my children.
Yeah. Don't you remember what we had? Yeah.
We get her thinking about the history throughout the conversation. Do you remember the history, Kyle? Basically, what's the deal with Triss? Why did he show up? What happened once he showed up? And why did he leave?
Well, because the two sons died, right? And then Theon got taken.
Yep.
So like her mom needed another son. And so these other kids.
Mom just wanted little boys kid boys running around the yard. Is that?
Well, like, yeah, it sounds like it, right? Like she
didn't adopt this kid. They just she was like, all right, I need boy wards here just so that I can, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't think it's weird though. It's like Ned and Robert were with Jon.
They've taken my sons from me. I'm gonna take. I need a son.
But Ned and Robert weren't there just because. Like, what I'm saying is, if her sons didn't die, she's not taking these guys on. The Aarons took on Ned and Robert because that's what they did.
I don't think it would have been unusual for them to take their mom, but I think especially when what we know about the mom now, right? And again, we haven't seen her, but it seems like the way they talk about her, she's kind of losing it
Yeah,
because
for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this was her choice. Maybe this was like she started to go crazy with so much
and
grief.
They're like, hey, let's just get
somebody was like, give her sons,
get some young boys over here, so she thinks that they're her sons.
Because Kyle didn't say this.
Fill
They
the
bring in
void.
5.
Yeah.
Exactly. They bring in 5. Well, just so she has like when my grandma was trying to quit smoking, she was sucking on lollipops because you just like you want something that like mimics the motion. Right, because part of it's like that part. So I think it's almost that. It's like let's just try and replace. She needs like something to be motherly too.
Yeah, it's a stupid thought though.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter if it's a good thought or
so
not.
Let me steal these kids. Let me steal these kids from their actual mother, so this mother can feel better about herself.
These guys are the lords of the Iron Islands.
Yeah, that's how the king and queen works, right?
Any child should be proud to come here and be a servant here, right?
No,
they put out a casting call, probably.
Yes.
Let me go be a. Let me give. It's not again. You said it was like Ned and Robert. Like Ned and Robert were going there to be like trained more so than these kids just coming.
Thing.
You just said to come be a servant. Like
that was a bad word. Their reward or whatever. This isn't weird. I don't think this is weird. It might not have worked to help the mom, but I don't think it's a weird idea. It doesn't
sound like it's a very island thing. Iron Island
That's
thing.
fair. That might be a more mainland thing.
That they're like, all right, my sons are died. I need other sons. That's how it's written down in this chapter. That's how I read it, at least.
The other thing that because
I don't even think they use the word reward.
The problem that I have is like, yes, I'm sure it's very traumatic when you lose children, but like to the point where you're mentally can't do anything for the rest of your life. Because if that's the case, like pretty regularly, it's not just the Greyjoys. How many common folk and peasants had sent their sons off to die in this war?
It's a little different when you have to go to work the next day in order to make money to like feed yourself.
You mean that helps that almost helps you get over it?
Well, they have no choice. This lady can fucking sit around and just mope and cry.
That's fair. It's almost like it is a third world problem. It is like a first world problem in Westeros. It's like because she has nothing to keep her mind busy, all she does is think about her dead children all day. That's fair. Jeff's looking for a quote, I can tell, to prove me wrong. Jeff never looks that hard unless he's trying to prove me wrong.
I am so confused why we're so worried about this.
Because I just think it's weird.
Why? They
Would it be weird if it was on mainland?
Again, it's not. I don't think it's anything like Ned and Rob going to the Vale, which is what you compared it to.
Well, hang on. So what happens once Christopher...
Of the 5 boys her mother had brought to Pike to foster after Ned Stark had taken her last living son as hostage. Like, it just sounds like I lost a puppy, I need another puppy.
We'll come back to this in a sec. So what happens
Probably,
next?
Jeff.
He comes...
That's fucking weird.
We'll come back to it in a sec. What happens next? Christopher's at Pike.
They start fondling each other, and they see them fondling each other, so they send his ass away.
He gets to second base and stops, and she's like, I would have let you go to third. Probably not home, but he stops at second.
If he would have been more aggressive, maybe.
Yeah, if bold enough, I think is what she says. Yeah. They do this seemingly for a little while, eventually get caught. Then what happens? Jeff, what's the third step here? Does he go home?
Black Tide.
What happens at Black Tide? He gets what at Black Tide?
I don't remember.
Warded at Black Tide, which is where he has been until now, which is why I said we'd come back to this.
It just says he was sent away. It doesn't even say warded.
He was warded at Black Tide.
Maybe he was fucking prisoner there.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him.
It's the same thing. It's all the same thing.
You're just assuming he was warded.
Theon was warded at Winterfell. He was a prisoner there.
You are treating the Iron Islands like the mainlands.
Warded sometimes means prisoner, sometimes it means foster.
No.
That's why ward's the greatest thing ever. It's such a wide gap. He was warded at Pike. He might have been prisoner at Black Tide, but he was warded there too.
Carry on. Basically, let's just wrap up this conversation. Are you going to come speak for me at the King's Moot? I'll do anything for you, is what Christopher says. I am ready. And this goes back to the history, right? When they were playing with each other, what kind of turned her off was like he starts talking, you're going to have my babies, boys and girls. We're going to do all this stuff.
All 12 of them. Yeah.
Dozen.
First off, just the percentage chance that she would survive that in this time, 12 children and some daughters, it's just like so minuscule. Like people die.
Yeah. Moms are dying. Moms are dying like
the coin.
every third mom is struggling in this time period.
Yeah.
And that already turned her off back then, which is why she was happy he kind of got kicked out, because then she started on her freak tour a little bit.
You back it up a little bit. We do hear a little bit of Euron talk here. So the reason that Christopher is Lord now, technically Lord, because his father died, got drowned by Euron. We heard that. And he did have an elder brother. His elder brother died at Mokalin. Interesting. Mokalin is on the mainland, right? That's the place in the neck. Victarion was sent to...
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't somebody going there? Yeah, so
he was with Victarion, but he died there. One of the Bod Devils shot him with a poison arrow. So that's kind of cool. It's probably like Mira and Jojen's family people.
Yeah, Jojen, that was the name I was trying to think of. Yeah.
So, so that happened. Then Euron killed the dad, drowned him, and now one of the uncles, Triss's uncle, I think they mention it in a second, German Botley, is basically like, I'm Lord now, because he bent the knee to Euron. And the main person, it seems like Euron's second in command is Lord Winch, who is the Lord of Ironholt. He was the first to bend a knee, and Trisfer says that even though one of the Botley uncles did bend the knee, Euron still gave like half the Botley lands over to this other guy just because he bent the knee first. He also mentions that Euron has a bunch of treasure. He brought back a bunch of treasure on his ship. Plate and pearls, emeralds and rubies, sapphires big as eggs, bags of coins so heavy that no man can lift them. And he's just been buying a lot.
Catcher getting bribed.
Yep. Yeah, he's got the bank. He can afford to, just throw his weight around here. So
yep.
It's got to be it's going to be a lot, right? To like, what's a gem?
Must be.
How many gem eggs are you getting?
I'm guessing he had more than one ship, but he says like, oh, Silence came back with like its hull full. Like one ship, even if it's like emeralds and rubies, like how many? Like you need more than one ship to have a lot of treasure.
That's what I'm saying. How much emeralds and rubies?
Yeah, you need so I'm guessing there's more ships.
How much does it take to get flipped? I don't know.
That dude's got a ton of ships. He's got sway.
Nelson would take anything to flip sides.
You could never flip me.
You'd be
too honorable. I'm too honorable.
You'd be easy to flip.
Too honorable. I would never take money for dishonor.
Is the history good?
Yep, we're going to history. I think the last part I have here is he's talking about, oh, it sucks that the letters that I was sending you, my maester actually never sent them. And he's like, one time I did give a letter to this guy who was supposed to be headed your way, and I gave him a silver stag, and he promised to put the letter in your hand. And she's like, he took your stag and threw the letter in the ocean, you idiot. And he's like, I feared as much. She's like, I never got your letters either. And she's like, well, it's probably because I never sent them. She doesn't say that. I think she just thinks that to herself. But this is where her and him kind of start talking about the Kingsmoot a little bit. He basically says, don't go. My foster dad, Baelor Black-Tide, the guy that I've been warded with, he says that the Kingsmoot's dangerous and Euron might attack, just like Euron Grey Iron did. And we skimmed over earlier, one of the things Roderick said is the time is a wheel and it repeats itself.
I thought that was a strong line.
And Euron Greyjoy sounds too similar to Euron Grey Iron to me. Like, he might just show up and try and kill everybody.
I mean, they all have the same name and last name, though. They're all like Euron, Daron, Meron.
There are a lot of new names in this one. And notes are, I wrote notes. I haven't finished all the links up yet, and the links are going to be tough. There's a lot of new names in this one, so.
He's like, don't go, but I'll still follow you. Like, I'm on your side. Like, let's do this thing. I'm ready to marry you.
Which he never really is like, I'm on your side for the Kingsmoot. Like, I think it's even left open ended at the end of the chapter where he lies there.
He says, I'll follow you anywhere.
I want to be your wife. He's like, your mom already said it's okay, and then that's where they get into that whole thing. Before that, though, she says Euron doesn't have the strength to do what Euron Grey Iron did, and he's like, you don't know how strong he is. Like, he's been gathering men on pike. Orkwood of Orkmont brought him 20 longships, and Pinch-Face John Meyer brought him a dozen more. So he has at least 32 longships, 33 if you count Silence. Plus, like I said, there's probably more than just Silence with him. So he's at least 33. He says also left-hand Lucas Codd is with them, as well as Heron Halfwhore, the Red Oarsman, Kemet Pike, the Bastard. I don't know if they say Kemet Pike, but that's his name, the Bastard.
Kemet Pike, the Bastard.
Yep. Roderick Freeborn and Torwald Browntooth. And she's like, they're all men of small account. This is funny. Men of small account, sons of salt wives, or grandsons of thralls. What does this mean, Kyle? What does that mean in Ironborn culture? What's the son of a salt wife? What's a salt wife?
Well, the salt wife is like just who you're banging out on the ocean. So it's bastards, right?
It basically bastards, yeah. So you basically Ironborn, they just like keep basically slave women, and that's a salt wife on a ship. I mean,
what's a thrall? Is that like a hooker?
A thrall is a slave on the land, basically. They don't call them slaves, and they get treated, I guess, slightly better than you would say a slave is. There's like But yeah, they're just like slaves on the land. But like, I guess even the sons of salt wives and grandsons of thralls, like not the sons of thralls, but the grandsons, maybe by that time they can rise high enough to be somewhat influential. And Asha's like, not really. They're still all like in the lower class. All these
They're
people
still nobodies to me.
It sounds like he's pulling fighters, not
exactly. It doesn't matter.
He doesn't give a shit where they come from.
Oh, for sure. Like, but she's justifying it or saying,
can you swing a sword type of thing.
That's fair.
She's trying to talk up her own position, though, right? Like, I think, like they're nobodies.
So then she asked, one of the names that she said there was Left Hand Lucas Cod. She's like, do you know the Cod's words? As when she's talk about how they're nobodies. And then we get one of the house words of one of my favorite house words of all of A Song of Ice and Fire, the Cods. Though all men do despise us. That's literally...
That can't be their actual name.
That's their house words. That's literally, no one likes us. We don't care.
Yeah, Philly. The old Jason Kelsey.
Yes, Philly chat. We're for Philly, fucking Philly. No one likes us. We don't care. That's the Cods. Though all men do despise us. It's like, fuck it.
It's funny.
I kind of love it. You gotta love the Cods house words. You guys don't seem interested.
I don't know why I cared so much about the syntax of it all, but he doesn't say he won't go to the King's Smoot with her. He just says that Black Tide thinks that we might get killed going there.
So I kind of pulled you back. Did we talk about him proposing to her yet?
No, it's coming up here.
Yeah, so he's like, I'll follow. You're right. He says like, I'll follow you anywhere. I'll be your wife.
You shall have all of me. I am your man forever, Asha. I will wed you. Your lady mother has given her consent.
Yeah, and Asha's like, well, you should ask me, but you probably wouldn't have liked the answer if you did that.
Well, I don't know. I asked Danielle's mom and dad before I asked her.
No, and I think that's a good thing to do, but like she said, I'm not going to say yes to you.
I ain't saying yes. Yeah, I could have saved you a conversation.
Well, and it was more of, well, they're not even like dating or anything, right? Like it was just like out of nowhere he came back and said,
they were destined.
Yeah, I'm going to come back and marry your daughter. Like that was the question, right? Like it wasn't like they were together and it was a consent thing. It was just I asked your mom and I set this up already. Like you're gonna be my wife. Like, and you're gonna give me all these kids.
If you actually look at it on paper, it's so much creepier. It's like, hey, the foster kid that ended up diddling our daughter and we had to have sent away, and we literally haven't seen him since. Like, hasn't seen him since that. And he shows back up. It's like, hey, can I marry her? And first off, the mom's crazy, so she doesn't matter.
Well, to be fair, it wasn't like they were diddling each other. It was like they were kids. They were kind of like together as kids.
I could do the math and figure out how old she was, but she says it wasn't until later when she first had sex, and she was 16 at that point. So they're younger than 16 at this point. I'm guessing like 12-ish.
Yeah, but they were both 12.
Mm-hmm. Still, it's kind of like young to have find your 12-year-old daughter.
I mean, you can't just blame him, right? Like that's all I'm saying. I don't know. They were just kids being kids. It sounds
for sure, but saying it in MMA makes sense. And then having a marriage proposal out of nowhere after no contact since that event.
Well, yeah, that weird. Yeah, it's weird. Yeah.
So I just think again, like looking at the black and white. And Jeff, the question I was gonna have for you is like, so when you proposed to Danny, do you think that she had talked to her parents and said like, hey, if Jeff asks,
no,
like. Say Dan, in a situation where a girl would say no in a proposal, do you think there's ever a chance she would have talked to her parents before and be like, hey, do not give consent on this?
I mean, yes, I'm sure it has happened. I'm also sure that like a parent has read into like not.
You didn't have to say it.
What do you mean?
They could tell. The parents could, like, the daughter didn't have to tell the dad. Like,
yeah. Like the dad's just like, no, fuck that. No. She's not all into this guy. And that more so than the daughter kind of preluding it to him. Yeah. Because I think if most parents would say no, I'm going to say that the dude's probably going to try it anyway. He's all right, screw it. Like, she loves me. I'm doing it. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I mean, I don't know. That'd be super awkward, but so just in terms of Asha, again, I think that just the whole point of that, why it's so weird on paper, and then the mom saying yes, again, like, the mom is kind of crazy, right? That's what we just heard about this mom and what a bad mental state she's in. So like that shouldn't really matter. And again, she's like, no, that's not going to happen. And I think she basically is pretty blunt with him here, right?
Well, yeah, he's like, I've saved myself for you. She's like, well, like, oh, you shouldn't have saved yourself. I've been out enjoying myself, like I haven't even really thought of you twice, man. Like you messed up here. This isn't my thoughts, right? Like I wasn't trying to have all these kids that you were trying to have. I wanted to go out and enjoy my life, and that's what I'm doing. So
yeah. She's like, I touched hundreds of men, some with my lips, some with my more with my axe. She thinks about her first time. It was just some dude from Lys. Some blonde-haired guy from Lys only spoke 6 words of the common tongue, but one of them was fuck, and that's the one she wanted to hear.
But
so
bang me was one of them.
yeah, exactly. Love to see it. And he's like, "What? Were you forced?" He's like, "Yeah, I was so forced I tore his tunic." He's like, "You don't want to wed me." He's like, "You're a sweet boy. I'm not a sweet girl."
Keep going, and I'll say it at the end, I guess. So,
he's like, "I've ached for you," and she's like, "Stop. That's enough." Like, she thinks this to herself. I got a dead dad, a sickly mom, a plague of uncles. The last thing I need is a lovesick puppy. She's like, find a brothel that'll cure you of your ache. He's like, I could never. He's like, we were meant to be. He's like, I'll be your wife, and like you'll be the mother of my sons. And he grabs her arm. She
stabs him.
Yeah. And she tells him to take his hands away, or he won't live to have a son. And then he does. She lowers the knife. She says if she wants a woman, she'll put one in his bed. And he can even pretend it's her for all he cares, but he can't. Like, he better not presume to touch her anymore. And he's like, "I'm your queen, not your wife. You better fucking remember that." That's pretty much the end. There's a drop of blood coming from his neck in the moonlight.
I want to know how Triss is responding to this encounter in 24 hours.
That's what I'm saying. Is he showing up at the Kingsmoot on Asha's side, or like?
I think so. I think he's gonna respect her still. I think. What's he like? She didn't really. I don't know. I think he's still gonna try and win her back, right? Like I think he respects her.
He's not giving up with just this.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's my opinion on that.
And let's Queen Smoot it up soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, so through the chapter, it sounds more like the Kingsmoot, Queensmoot is kind of more like the way that the leader, Lord Commander at the Wall. It kind of sounds like. Because they're like talking about, cheers and chanting of your name and votes. It kind of seems like maybe a way like that. So
less like a contest, more like a more democratic.
Yeah, more of a debate.
Very Ironborn old way.
I don't know. It's probably a fight to the death. Let's be real. But
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the theme of Game of Thrones. Is even if it's supposed to be like there's like a civil law, there's a succession. Yeah. Somebody can always just show up with a bigger army. And that's kind of the whole theme of this chapter, too, is like, you're on Grey Iron. That's whatever the Kingsmoot is, he just showed up with more people and was like, nope, I'm in charge now. And that lasted for 1,000 years. So.
Tough shit. Yeah. Yep.
So it might not even matter what the Kingsmoot is.
Yeah, true.
Bring your swords. Let's get to work.
We'll find out soon. We'll see Kyle. And the next one, I don't even know who the next one is.
Cersei.
Damn, her. Cersei again. Cersei 3.
Right back to the gal.
See Kyle in the next one for Cersei 3. See the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Bye, Kyle. Thanks for hanging out with us. See you on the next time for Cersei 2.
3. Now in the spoiler section. Jeff, what do you got?
I don't have any hot takes.
I don't really have that much either. I feel like there's some stuff we should probably talk about the Kingsmoot that I don't have written down.
Tell me how the Kingsmoot actually happens in the book. I know it's like all 3 of them stand up to be the person, right? And they all get cheers.
Way more than 3. You're gonna hate the chapter. There's like 10 people that stand up.
Yeah, well, the names don't matter. It's kind of like it's almost like politics in the U.S. Like 9 people put their hat in, but there's really only 3 people running.
Yeah, it's an era. So the first thing I'll say, I guess, is this is the first and only Asha point of view in this whole book.
Oh, interesting.
There's 3 more in Dance of Dragon.
We get some damp hairs.
Damp hair, Victarion also get point of views.
Victarion's, I feel like, was an awful chapter. I feel like he was like,
well, Victarion's is the first one we see Euron. I think that's the next Greyjoy chapter we get is Victarion. There's a big feast going on, and then he goes and talks to Euron. Before the Kingsmoot, I think is how this happens. Kingsmoot is an Aeron Damp Hair chapter.
Damp Hair, good narrator.
Well, yeah, he's kind of the most, I guess, I mean, he wants Victarion to win, but he's the most impartial, I guess.
All right, just roll out what happens in the Kingsmoot, because I forget.
Basically, a bunch of no names go. I forget the order they go. I think Victarion might end up going first. He's like, you like Balon, you'll get what you always got with Balon. With me, more of the old way, more of the Greyjoy way, more of the Ironborn way. I think Asha comes up next and is like, look at what's that's got us. A bunch of you have dead sons. You don't want that.
She has a new plan, the third path.
And she's like, hey, we're going to claim land. We're going to slowly claim. I think her idea is basically slowly claim land, or maybe do even what Roderick says. Doesn't really matter, because then at the end, Euron shows up and he has this guy blow this big ass magic horn. And he's like, we're going to fucking go win it all. We're going to take over everything. I think he mentions Dany. That's the point of the horn. He's like, we're going to use this horn to fucking claim dragons.
And he gets people to believe that, right? And even Victarion, because he sends Victarion to go get Dany, right?
Well, there's a bunch of chapters where they end up like start attacking off the coast, kind of like near Old Town. Like Old Town's kind of in the mouth. There's like a river that leads inland to Old Town. I'm wrong. Where Victarion is with him, they're doing some fighting off the Shield Islands, which is there's a river that leads inland to Highgarden. I misspoke, because Old Town's a port city. So there's a river that leads inland to. It doesn't obviously the river probably flows the other way, right? Don't all rivers flow to the sea?
All rivers go to the sea, yeah.
I think this river is actually the Mander. Highgarden's up it. At the coast, there's like these 4 islands off at the mouth called the Shield Islands. Yeah. I think there's a Victarion chapter where basically they're wrecking shop there. Victarion kills some people.
I think I recall that.
I think after that, Euron sends Victarion away. He's the one that's supposed to go get Dany and the dragons. Or one or the other. I forget exactly what the plan there is there. Yeah, so that's kind of what's up next for those guys.
All right. What happens to Uncle Roderick? Does he come?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
Well, Asha's all talk.
The only 2 points I had for this one was Daenerys the Dreamer. So the first book he's reading when he comes in, Marwyn has found 3 pages from this other book, Signs and Portents, which is about Aenys the Exarch's daughter who had visions before the Doom.
About that the Doom was coming.
She had visions of the Doom, and that's why they left and came to Dragonstone. So interesting that Marwyn wrote a book about his search for another book about that stuff.
He wants to know how to dream better.
Well, just dream better, or just like, yeah, what's up with these Targaryen visions? I mean, we know, and also like once Sam gets there, he just hops ship and takes off and tries to go get Dany, go meet Dany.
Yeah.
The other book that Asha just notices in passing, and I mentioned this in the non-spoiler, but about Maegor Targaryen and the Poor Fellows. Just interesting because Cersei has a war against the Poor Fellows kind of later on, right? She reappoints them.
She kind of empowers the Poor Fellows, right?
Exactly, yeah. The Poor Fellows and the Warrior Sons. Those were like the 2 ancient, like, peasant group and more warrior knighty group.
The one quote that I liked was Uncle Rickard in history being a wheel.
Yeah,
I mean, we know that history repeats itself, right? That's a very common thing, but they Game of Thrones it up, and like the wheel becomes a big Dany plot line.
Well, I feel like this is probably where they got the Dany thing. Yeah, I don't know if that's in the books at all, but I feel like this is kind of where they probably got it for that whole line in this show, where she's like, "The wheel, I'm gonna break the wheel,
break the wheel." Yeah, no, I just that's what it triggered for me, was like, I'm a believer too in history as a wheel. History will repeat itself.
Yeah, those who what's the quote in today's world? Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, so I think it is interesting to see, like, we see stuff George obviously plants in history that is meant to like parallel other stuff. Like a lot of people think that even like the Dance of the Dragons with Rhaenyra and Aegon is going to be like a Dany and Aegon, like where midway through Winds of Winter, they're going to be in a very similar situation. Maybe one of them even has Dragonstone, the other one has King's Landing type thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think George puts it in, but I think to your point, it also actually happens in the real world too. I can't think of a real world example right now, but yeah.
I'll get like just of history repeating itself.
Yeah.
I guess it wasn't a history repeats itself thing, but it was another theme of this chapter, which is like women can't rule, and like a woman hasn't been elected president. Like that's.
Oh yeah, that theme keeps repeating itself. Yeah, for sure.
And that just got. I mean,
Yeah, just repeated itself again.
One side's pretty high on that being a big part of the reason.
One thing I was actually thinking when I was reading through this is, and maybe this is a sexist thought of me, is like, does the fact that like as a woman you're just gonna have some people that are, I guess it happens as men too though, because I'm just not a woman, you're gonna have people that are just attracted to you, and I guess this hasn't really been true with the maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure there are some people that are attracted to the presidential candidates, women of recent, but like they're more older women that have been running for president, right? But like in Asha's case, she's a very young woman running for.
I don't think you're far off from what you said. I just think it's more so of like people are attracted to them and they can't defend themselves, which Asha, like, defending herself is kind of like, whoa, shit, like the guy's kind of taken back, right? I don't know how that really fits in common time.
Well, I feel like Cersei, like so for example, I feel like Cersei uses her attractiveness as an advantage. She knows she can kind of win people, like especially the Kettleback. She can get them to her size.
She uses it as a weapon.
Yeah, like I feel like Asha maybe a little bit too. We haven't really seen it in this chapter yet, but she said, like, I guess the one line she says is, half the men on my ship love me like a daughter, half when I spread my legs. All of them would die for me. You have to assume she kind of has this conversation like she had with Triss, maybe not as extreme, but something similar where they're coming on to her with some of her men.
And she, like, checks them.
And, like, they were girls that like, we were friends with in college that, like, I was like that with, right, where I would be flirting with them, and they were like, okay, Nelson, like, okay.
And then they check you.
Like, I knew that it wasn't really gonna happen, but they would be flirty and like lead it, and we were friends, right? Like, so I think that's kind of how I see this.
They entertained you,
but I feel like to a point they're like they're using what they got. They know what they got. They're using it for their advantage, right? And I feel like Asha's good at that.
Can I give you a less political history repeating itself?
Sure.
We're football guys. NFL was a running league, and then in the last, like, I don't know, 5 to 8 years, it's been a passing league, and it's coming back to a running league.
So great. Yeah, it's great.
Back to running power.
Unfortunately, we're not running power. We're running the stupid zone, too much zone. We got these running quarterbacks who are just reading the ends all the time. It's like college, but whatever. It's better than throwing the ball all over the place. Yeah. I'll take it.
But, all right, let's wrap her up.
I didn't have too much. Yeah, I'm sure, like, as we'll get into it, we'll be talking about Euron a little bit more. But yeah, the other thing is we're just getting to the point of the book where we don't know too much more than Kyle does. So, like, we talk about some of it with
you
him.
You don't know anything, too, because I'm just proving you wrong every episode.
I'm a little tipsy. It'll come back to me. The other thing is I need to get back to it. I've been reading too many other books. A lot of times I'm a little bit further ahead in my listen through of the audiobooks.
Not even a fan.
I've been slacking. I'm only like a chapter or two ahead. So the one thing I will say is one of the fans commented on a recent YouTube video. Cersei 4, you might hate it. It's just like a council chamber. I'm pretty sure it's one of the longest chapters of the entire series, but it's a really long council chamber. I think it's a lot of people's favorite chapter. It is a great one. It's just Cersei being so bad at politics. This is Cersei 3, the next one we got coming up, but the Cersei after that.
I'll just have to read it. I'll have to read it with the full energy.
Yeah, and it's one of the ones where I think, and again, I haven't read it in a while, so I'm speaking from memory here, but if I recall, Pycelle is just the smartest guy in the room. Like, everything he says is just so right. Like, in hindsight, especially at
he's
what
actually
we know
the smartest guy in the room.
It's just like, what? So when you read it, and I know we're still on Cersei 3, I've said this before too, is like, I feel like from here on out, pretty much everything Pycelle, in hindsight, if we would have done what he said, it would have had the best outcome for Cersei. And again, it's because he doesn't hate Cersei. He is trying to just help Lannisters. So, like, she thinks he's dumb, but like his counsel is always just trying to help them. But yeah, now we're way off topic. We'll see you guys in the next one for Cersei 3. Bye-bye. Like, subscribe.